Madam President, we wish to thank Martin Griffiths for his objective assessment of the catastrophic situation in the Gaza Strip. The Russian Federation has supported the initiative of Algiers to convene today's meeting of the Security Council on the situation in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict zone. The conflict has been going on for nearly 4 months now. The staggering toll of loss and damage, which we all are aware of, speaks for itself. More than 26,600 people, including women and children, have fallen victim of the indiscriminate bombing and violent actions of military personnel. At least 65,000 people have been wounded. 80% of the entire population of the Gaza Strip has become internally displaced. In light of the absence of unimpeded humanitarian access to the north of the Strip and to its southern regions, first and foremost in Han Yunis, where the Israeli military personnel have, for the 8th consecutive day, besieged the Al-Amal hospital, as well as the large-scale devastation and destruction of civilian infrastructure object. According to reports, up to 50% of this infrastructure have been destroyed. There are equally deadly threats of hunger and the epidemic of communicable diseases looming over Gaza. The leadership of the UN at all levels unanimously has proclaimed that there is an imperative need for an urgent, ubiquitous ceasefire as a precondition for the establishment of humanitarian assistance at the necessary level. For our part, we consistently and steadfastly advocate the immediate humanitarian ceasefire. At the same time, of course, first and foremost, we are talking about the Gaza Strip. However, the armed raids by the Israeli military personnel in the West Bank of the Jordan River, the depictions of the storm of the hospital in Jenin have circulated throughout the world, alongside the shelling on the Blue Line with Lebanon and the indiscriminate strikes targeting Syrian territory need to be urgently put to an end. For absent an end to hostilities, absent this, it is not possible to have a full-fledged humanitarian access to all of those in need. It will be impossible to release all of the hostages, and it will be impossible to rekindle the process of Palestinian-Israeli settlement on the internationally legally recognized basis. We have repeatedly, publicly stated that the attack against Israel on 7 October, during which Israeli civilians died, warrants the strongest condemnation. However, this cannot and should not be used to justify the collective punishment of millions of Palestinian people, nor to justify actions which are liable to destabilize the entire Middle East region. Madam President, against this tragic humanitarian backdrop, the decision of a number of Western donors, led by the United States, to halt financing for UNRWA in connection with the suspicions of participation of its staff on the 7 October attack has resonated. In this context, we share and embrace the position of the leadership of the Secretariat about the importance of the conduct of a thorough and transparent investigation into the allegations. At the same time, it is important for the information not just from Israel to be taken into account, but for information from the Palestinians to also be taken into account. However, this situation should not be used as a pretext for the collective punishment of millions of Palestinians in need and thousands of agency staff who have been conscientiously complying with and continue to fill their obligations over the course of 75 years. Suspicions against 12 UNRWA employees cannot and should not be used to discredit the entire structure of the agency, nor to undermine its crucial, indispensable operations in the delivery of support to nearly 6 million Palestinians on occupied Palestinian territory and in neighboring Arab countries. The leadership of UNRWA has stated that given the halt to financing from key donors, a decision whose motivations give rise to a number of questions for us. Against this backdrop, the agency, which is already enduring chronic shortfalls of financing, will be unable to operate in the Gaza Strip and in the region as a whole after February of this year. We cannot allow that to happen. Under these circumstances, we are particularly concerned by the provocative rhetoric from a number of representatives of the Israeli leadership. They have been calling not just for the continuation of the military operation in the Gaza Strip, but they have also been calling for an end to the presence of UNRWA in the Gaza Strip and calling for the forcible displacement of Palestinians from their homes. This kind of a scenario must be averted at all costs. There is a need also to immediately end the violence which has reached staggering levels by the Israeli army and Jewish settlers on the West Bank. Madam President, we lament the fact that under these circumstances, the UN Security Council has not yet been able to adopt a single product with a demand to end the violence, and this is a result of the position of a single delegation, the United States, the U.S., which has blocked all efforts, all initiatives to end the bloodletting on occupied territories, and the U.S. has granted Israel carte blanche to pursue its collective punishment of the Palestinians. And as for the Security Council, its impotence, its inability to adopt comprehensive collective measures has resulted in the fact that this spiral of violence on occupied Palestinian territory has resulted in the conflict spilling over to the entire region. The aggressive actions of our colleagues at the Security Council, the U.S. and the UK, their aggressive actions in the Red Sea are reminiscent of the darkest times of the barbaric and illegal NATO bombings of Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria. At the same time, there is an unconscionable exploitation and use of slogans, which is unconscionable on counterterrorism and the so-called right to self-defense. These are being manipulated. We categorically condemn the unjustified aggression against Yemen, which has been undertaken without the sanction of the Security Council. Once again, we stress that the illegitimate provocative actions of Washington and London pose a direct threat to international peace and security, and this undermines the world order, which is rooted in the supremacy of international law and the central role of the UN. At the same time, we note the dynamic position of the overwhelming majority of the membership of the international community. They do not wish to silently observe the cleansing of Gaza territory, which is being carried out under the cover of the United States by the Israelis. And nor has the International Court of the United Nations stood by idly. On the 26th of January, a ruling was issued on provisional measures for Israel, including inter alia the occupying power, to essentially comply with those obligations which are already incumbent upon that country under international law. Madam President, the principled approaches of the Russian Federation to this spiral of the Palestine-Israeli conflict remains unchanged. Our key demand is as follows: an immediate ceasefire as the prerequisite for ensuring the unimpeded humanitarian access to all of those in need, and the unconditional release of all hostages. Furthermore, what is clear to us is that spiraling violence in Gaza and the West Bank will continue to repeat itself until the root cause of the conflict, the long-standing injustice, is remedied, until the Palestinian people are able to exercise their right, which is stipulated under UN Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, their right to establish an independent state within the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Only this balanced approach, rooted in international law, will result in a lasting peace. The Russian Federation will continue to spare no effort to facilitate stabilization in the Middle East, to advance the process of Middle East settlement alongside countries in the region, and in coordination with other conscientious mediators. As in the past, we remain open to discussion of the relevant initiatives as part of collective efforts at the United Nations. Thank you.